All right, let's get into one of the most chilling, most captivating, unsolved mysteries in all of American history. I mean, this case has it all. Hollywood ambition, a truly gruesome crime, a media frenzy like no other, and a killer who just vanished, leaving behind a ghost story that still haunts Los Angeles almost 80 years later. So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start at the very beginning with a shocking discovery that sent a wave of panic across the city. Then we're going to really zoom in on the police investigation in 1947 and the absolute chaos the media created around it. After that, we'll look at the main suspects and explore why this case has had such a dark, lasting legacy.
So, picture this. It's January 15th, 1947. Los Angeles is booming after the war. It seems like just another ordinary morning, but what a local woman found in an overgrown, vacant lot was about to become a moment of horror the city would never, ever forget.
Yeah, that was the first thought of Betty Berzinger, who was just out for a walk with her little girl. The body was so pale, so perfectly, deliberately posed, that it just didn't look real. Of course, the reality was a complete nightmare. So there, in the Limer Park neighborhood, was the body of a young woman. She was naked, severed clean in half, and arranged in a way that was somehow both meticulous and just monstrous. Right away, the police knew this wasn't just a murder. This was a statement. For the LAPD, the scene was just a horrifying puzzle. The bisection was surgically precise, a rare procedure called a hemicorporectomy. But the body had also been completely drained of blood and scrubbed clean before being posed. You've got this clinical precision right next to the brutal truth. The actual cause of death was a brain hemorrhage from being beaten over the head. This wasn't just violence, it was a chilling, terrifying performance. The LAPD, as you can imagine, launched a massive investigation. We're talking over 750 officers from different departments. But you have to remember, they were working in a totally different era of crime solving, with challenges that are pretty hard for us to even wrap our heads around today. Now, despite the state of the body, the FBI identified her in an incredible 56 minutes. How? Well, her fingerprints were already in their system from a 1943 arrest for underage drinking. This was huge for the police. It gave them a name, but it also gave the press a story to run with. So the official process kicked off, but their toolkit was a world away from modern forensics. Think about it. No DNA, no digital databases. Every single lead had to be chased down by an officer on foot or on the phone or by digging through mountains of paper records by hand. And this right here is what I find so fascinating. It shows you their methods, but also their huge limitations. They had this new tech called a sound photo, which was basically a primitive fax machine. Groundbreaking at the time, but the images were blurry. They relied heavily on polygraphs, which, we're a lot more skeptical of today. And here's the most tragic part. Their one and only good piece of physical evidence, some partial fingerprints on a taunting letter from the killer, was ruined just because it got mishandled on its way to the FBI. Unbelievable. But here's the thing, the police weren't the only ones hunting for a story. The investigation almost immediately turned into this giant media circus that grabbed the public's attention, but also made the search for the killer so much harder. And this name, the Black Dahlia. It was coined by reporters, and for the newspapers, it was pure gold. It turned Elizabeth Short, a tragic victim, into this sensational, mysterious character. Like she was straight out of a movie, playing out on the front page every single day. And the case just fed this moral panic. This was post-war America. More women were seeking independence, and Elizabeth Short's story got twisted into this dark, cautionary tale, a warning to all the young women flocking to Hollywood that their dream could turn into an absolute nightmare. This really lays out the central conflict, doesn't it? While the LAPD was trying to do methodical police work, you had reporters literally swarming crime scenes, sometimes even answering the police tip lines themselves. And in one of the worst examples, they completely deceived Elizabeth's mother. They called her and pretended her daughter had won a beauty contest just to get personal stories and photos. Only after they got what they wanted did they tell her the truth. Then they flew her out to LA and hid her from the police, all to protect their exclusive. It's just staggering. So the investigation looked at over 150 potential suspects and had to sort through dozens and dozens of false confessions. But over all these years, a few key people have really stayed at the center of most of the theories. Let's start with maybe the most compelling suspect of them all, a very prominent LA doctor. And the crazy thing is, his own son, a former LAPD homicide detective, is the one who built this incredibly detailed case accusing him of the murder. The case his son, Steve Hodel, put together is just massive. He points to his dad's medical training, which would explain the clean bisection of the body. He even claims his father's handwriting is a match for the killer's notes. But honestly, the most chilling piece of evidence comes directly from the LAPD's own secret files. So get this. This was recorded by police investigators themselves. They had his house bugged, and he says this, basically admitting to it. And yet, for reasons that people still argue about today, Dr. George Hodel was never, ever charged with the murder.
And the list just keeps going. There was Leslie Dillon, who knew all these disturbing little details about the crime. Mark Hansen, whose address book was actually mailed by the killer. And of course, Robert Manley, the last guy to see her alive. Every one of them has a plausible theory attached, but none of them had that definitive slam dunk proof needed to close the case. So you have to ask yourself, with all this attention, with hundreds of investigators, how was this case never solved? Well, it was really a perfect storm of failure. Way too much information, not enough hard forensic evidence, and a killer who was actively playing games with them. Right from the start, the police were just buried in false confessions. There were over 60 in just the initial investigation, and it's over 500 now. All that noise, all that wasted time, just drowned out any real leads they might have had. The killer was playing a deep psychological game. He sent taunting messages to the press. He mailed them packages with Elizabeth's personal things inside, her birth certificate, photos, her address book. And then, in one final brilliant move to evade capture, he wiped every single item down with gasoline, completely destroying any chance of finding a fingerprint. So, even though the official case file is ice cold, the story of the Black Dahlia never went away. It broke out of the true crime category and became this permanent, dark part of our culture. You know, this isn't just a true crime story. You could argue it's the blueprint for our entire modern fascination with them. The case was so notorious, it led to real change, like California creating its very first sex offender registry. But its real legacy is as this dark American myth, a symbol of the danger hiding behind Hollywood's bright lights, and a story whose mystery really paved the way for the true crime obsessions so many of us have today. After nearly 80 years, the evidence is gone, the witnesses and suspects are all dead. It seems almost certain that the killer took his secret to the grave, leaving us with this brutal, sensational crime, and a question that, in all likelihood, is never, ever going to be answered.